Welcome to the Feminine Truth Podcast with Miranda, a place where you can reconnect with your wild, cyclical, and fierce truth. I am Miranda, a mentor, guide, healer, and intuitive coach. I guide women on a journey of remembrance, reconnection, and embodiment of their inner feminine truth and power. Join me each week to tap into raw, unedited, and unfiltered sacred conversations to help women tap into their inner feminine truth and power to become bold, unshakable, and unapologetic in who they truly are. Let's jump into today's sacred conversation. Welcome to another episode. Today we are going to be talking about boundaries, and I want to make this podcast episode more like an evergreen that you can use for any type of event that's coming up, that where you are going to be gathering around family, of friends, or people that you know that you don't necessarily want to be around, but because it's kind of like a holiday or a party, whatever party or gathering it is, you know that person is going to be there. And I just feel like there's a lot of tension when it comes to boundaries and the reasons why many of us don't set boundaries. But boundaries are basically limits and preferences you set for yourself for how you want others to interact with you or have a relationship with you. It has nothing to do whether you are selfish or you are a bitch or anything like that. There's simply how you want others to have an interaction with you and a relationship with you, and therefore it's going to play out how you want others to treat you too, because they might respond and react to your boundaries in ways that are probably not healthy, like coping mechanisms or behaviors toward you. So this is where you gotta have a lot of discernment, like, okay, you know what, this relationship is not beneficial for me, for my mental health, my sanity, or you're not the type of person that I want to have around, and you just gotta set the boundary. And I see many who don't set boundaries even with themselves and others, and it leads you to feel depleted, burnout, and feel very resentful every time, especially if you are a people pleaser and you kind of are so used to be kind of like helping everyone out, be there for everyone, be so reliable. It can lead to a lot of resentment because you are always giving, you are always doing. There's an imbalance of energy exchange where you are giving too much, allowing too much, and others to take too much. And especially if you have people who are kind of like the energy vampires who absorb a lot of your energy, those are takers, and you are going to be energetically depleted. And of course, like I said, resentful. You will get so mentally drained as well. And this is going to not only impact your mental health, but your well being and your health and how you feel about yourself too. And also, boundaries are personal, and I see them more to preserve your mental well being and your inner peace and your sanity. And there is this thing that when you start becoming aware and conscious and doing this healing work, especially if you're kind of like the cycle breaker of the family or the black sheep, that you are going to start seeing a lot of things that you were not seeing before, because now you are awakened and you're going to start recognizing a lot of patterns, a lot of toxicity, a lot of how people have been acting, the wounding. And then this is when you make the decision to either distance yourself slowly from that relative or family member or friend, or you can choose to have the conversation. But boundaries, in a nutshell, they're so beneficial for you, and they're crucial around not only holiday seasons or when you are going to be around family, but they're just for your overall well-being in body, mind, and soul. And it's okay to set healthy boundaries with your family. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday or not. It's just okay to start practicing that. And it's okay to decline an invitation for a gathering, if you desire to do your own thing, or maybe you don't want to be around a certain family member or go to someone's house, you probably have your own reasons as to why you don't want to engage or go there. But the worst thing that we can do is go somewhere out of feeling this sense of obligation, because if we don't go, they're gonna get mad at us, or they're gonna distance themselves by giving us the silent treatment and be mad that they're not gonna talk to us. And just the thought of feeling those emotions of someone not liking us, hating us for a little bit, not talking to us, giving us the silent treatment, it is so intense to just think about feeling that's the reason why a lot of people don't set boundaries, because they are not able to communicate effectively and in a good way and set boundaries, and not only for themselves but for their family, because they're so used to always saying yes. And a lot of times people don't set those boundaries because it's better to avoid just the thought of feeling those emotions than to just set the boundaries. And still, you're going to feel those emotions, but at least you are going to be so rooted in your strength and so in integrity with what you desired, that it's going to help you also create a good relationship with yourself, because you follow through with what you desired. You are honoring your word. So you are choosing yourself, and that's always going to be a huge win. And I feel like a lot of people also, there's it depends on the type of culture you were brought up. Like, I'm Hispanic, so there's a lot of enmeshment in Hispanic or Latino families where there's a lot of everyone knowing each other's business. Everyone, it's always like gossiping, and everybody knowing what's going on in everyone's lives. And there's a lot of enmeshment that you don't really have boundaries, because they're so used to, like, if there's a holiday, everybody's going to be there. And if someone doesn't want to go there, then obviously it's going to be like they're going to stop talking to you. They're not going to like invite you ever again. And a lot of people don't, in Hispanic cultures, especially those who haven't done the inner work and are not used to setting boundaries, they're not gonna receive those well. So there's also not only the fear of setting the boundary, but the fear of the reaction of the person you are setting the boundary with. That is so, it's so scary to feel. And it's important for me to, like, also like tell you that it's okay to have those emotions. It's okay to have those fears. But if the anxiety and the fear is so big that you just have days thinking about, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to go to that holiday, I really don't want to be around those people, I really don't want to be there longer than I need to, and then you are made to feel guilty, shameful, all sorts of emotions, and then now you feel like you have to go. Like, there's this sense of obligation, there's this sense of honoring your family no matter how toxic they are, that it's not okay. It just doesn't sit well with me. And I feel like it's okay to distance yourself from those people who are not helping you elevate and feel good and don't respect your desires and your boundaries. And setting boundaries, obviously, it's nobody, a lot of people don't deserve to have access to you and to know what's happening in your life. And just because someone is family or blood related, it does not mean that they're entitled or have rights to know what's going on with you, what's going on with your life, and asking all these questions. And I know for a lot of times, women, especially if you are navigating single life or the dating struggles in today's world, and you don't have a partner, or maybe something happened, you're going through a divorce. But this is more for the ladies, the women who are single right now and not dating or haven't found the person that they desired. um it can be very dreadful and very like anxiety provoking to think about going to a family gathering for the holidays when you are going to be asked all sorts of questions about your life, What's going on? Have you met anyone? Are you dating anyone? What's going on with your career? What's going on with, especially if you gain weight or if something happened, if something around your body that they always notice if you gain weight or if you lost weight. And there's like, it's like this nitpicking and always like asking those questions that shouldn't be asked at all. And I just feel like people don't even have boundaries with what they're asking. They don't know when it's too much or TMI, or hey, like this is none of your business. Why are you asking about my weight? Why are you asking anything related to my body? Why do you care if I'm dating or not? And I just feel like a lot of women who struggle or haven't found the person of their dreams, when they get asked, so how, what's wrong with you, like why are you not, why don't you have a person, you're too picky, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. And there can feel, it can feel like there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of criticism around it when people don't really know. And I just feel like it's sometimes those people asking those questions don't even have happy marriages or relationships. Like, why are you having an opinion and asking me about my love and dating life when you are not even an example to follow or someone that I would want to have a relationship like yours? Like, you're not even someone I would take advice from, you know? And I feel like there's a lot of judgment and criticism. So, like, for me, I remember when I was going through the divorce, um, it was the first holiday post like separation, and I just remember that people like started asking me, and I just said I'm not ready to talk about it, or I don't want to talk about it. And I kind of just like never, no one really asked me what was happening, but I had to set the tone for how I wanted the conversation to go. And just saying those words can just like kind of the energy, I also set the words, the tone on my voice too, kind of told that person that he shouldn't be asking me more questions regarding my love and dating relationship or my marriage or anything like that. But I'm lucky that I don't have a big family. I'm lucky that it's just my immediate family, my parents and my brothers more than anything. And I don't really have a lot of gatherings to worry about, except when there's kind of like a birthday party for one of my nieces or my nephews. There's more people that I really don't like seeing. So I already know how to act and be around those people. I already know to be very not talk too much to them, distance myself. And I usually, like, I'm so busy with my nieces and my nephews that I don't really care for those relatives. But I do have boundaries. I do know how to communicate. And I think like the communication aspect is one of those things that a lot of people don't know how to communicate those boundaries. And it's one of those things that you have to learn how to say it in a straightforward, but also with like a compassionate tone, but also with this tone of like fierceness, and that you're not afraid to set the boundary. And you can also have a conversation around it. For example, if someone comes up to you and asks, hey, how's dating? Have you met anyone? What happened with the other guy you were talking about? You can always say, oh, I don't feel comfortable talking about that right now. Or I'm like, or you can always say something around around, hi, thank you so, I appreciate you asking, or thank you so much for asking, but I'm so happy single right now. I'm just enjoying my time with myself and I'm really happy. You can literally just say that, even if it feels like it's not true for you. You can always say that. Like for me, it's gotten to the point that my friends or family don't ask me if I'm dating. They don't ask me if I have met anyone. Like that's not even a question for me anymore, because everybody knows that I'm single. I'm choosing to be single. I'm happy. Creating the life that I always dreamed of. I'm taking care of my podcast, my business. I do have a full-time job, so I'm very busy. And I don't have the time and the energy at this moment of my life to worry about men and dating. So for me, it's this journey has been a lot of decentering dating and decentering men, especially this year, especially the last 8 months. And friends and family don't even ask me anymore. Like they literally don't ask me anymore. And the one time, one of my coworkers asked me, "Hey, what are you doing today?" I'm like, "Oh, I have plans." "Oh, you have a date?" I literally, it's not like I snapped, but I said to him, I'm like, "What makes you think that that's the only possible plan that I could have?" And he's like, "Well, I just thought that, you're attractive, you're good looking." He's my good friend. And I'm like, "Yeah, but why would make you think that it's all I revolve my life around dating?" Like, this is the third time he actually would mention something like that. Every time he would ask, "What are you doing this weekend?" or what is your plan today?" And I'm like, "Oh, I have plans. So I have a commitment." It's always like, "Oh, are you going on a date?" And this was the third time. And I just had to say something. And I was like, "You know what?" I'm like, I have more things to do than to date, than to revolve my time around men at this moment, at this phase in my life, that I no, it has nothing to do with a date. I have other priorities in my life. So I think that you also need to think about that sometimes that's not the only option that women have. Just because I'm single doesn't mean that my life revolves around dating and going out on dates and centering men. Like, not at all. I have other priorities. I have other things that are more important to me at this point in my life. So if someone asks a family member and then you feel uncomfortable, you can just say, "Oh, I'm happily single. I'm very happy. Are you happy with your life?" There can be this tone of sarcasm, but at the same time, it's like, why go there? You can also communicate boundaries with sensitivity. You can also find strategies to be more assertive and be more straightforward. And you can honestly be honest. Like when they asked me about my divorce and my separation, I just said, "I'm not comfortable talking about that," or "I'm not ready to talk about that," or "I actually don't want to talk about this." Like, I went to visit my sister, and one of her like in-laws asked me how everything is going with my life, and I don't like giving people updates. Like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a very long time. I don't feel like giving an update of everything that's going on in my life." And I just said, "Everything is good, but I really don't want to talk about it. How is everything with you?" And then that was okay. That was okay. But I feel like we need to find a way, depending on the person you are communicating with, because that's also very important, of how to relay the message that you are not open to having this conversation right now. And I feel like it's so important to know that it's okay if family members don't receive our boundaries the way we desired. They're not going to be all excited about it. They're not going to be all happy. They might get offended. They might get hurt, especially if they're not used to someone setting boundaries with them and they're so enmeshed and they're all up in your business, that it's going to be okay for you to set those boundaries and just communicate with them. But don't expect that people are just going to be all happy about it. Don't expect people to receive your boundaries like in the best way possible, because a lot of times people are going to get offended if they are not used to someone setting boundaries with them. And this is where the enmeshment happens. And like I said, I grew up in a Hispanic culture. I was raised, there's a lot of enmeshment. There's a lot of also, I have an anxious attachment. I'm more prone to disorganize actually, but I also grew up with being like a people pleaser. So for me, setting boundaries has been one of the hardest things ever. And it's something that I continue to work on because I continue to see spaces where I needed to set boundaries and I find myself drained and feeling resentful. So when you start feeling resentful, that's when you know that probably a boundary has been crossed because you have not been clear that that's a boundary that you need in order to be in that relationship with that person. And you just need to emphasize it. And there have been so many other, not just holiday related, where boundaries need to be set And it is really hard to set those boundaries. But I found this really good post that I really like by Nedra. And she talks a lot about boundaries. I'm going to put the link in the show notes so you can go directly to this post. But for example, she talks about when you set a boundary, especially if you are traveling somewhere for a holiday and you don't want to stay at that person's house, you can always say, when I come to visit, I'll be staying in a hotel. And this is something that I have been wanting to say to a family member, but just the fear of saying that, I know that person is going to be hurt, is going to be mad at me. So I always end up staying at that place that I don't want to stay, and I always end up feeling so drained and so depleted. So this is something that I'm also working on. But since I don't really travel for holidays or anywhere, and this is not super applicable, but maybe you are traveling, and if you don't feel that it's in your best interest to stay at that person's house, you can always say, hey, I am so happy and so excited that I'm coming to visit you, but I will be staying in a hotel or Airbnb, whatever it is that you book, but I cannot wait to come spend X holiday or that day with you. Period. Just make it kind of like excitement, because there's also this level of communication that it's like, I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. But in order for us to get there, I need to have this X thing, X, Y, and Z thing done. How does that make you feel? You can always rephrase it as that. And there's other things. For example, if there is a family member that is a relative that is going to be at this gathering, you can always choose to not go, simply because you don't want to be around that person, or you don't like that person, or maybe that person has made remarks or comments that are derogatory, or comments that you don't like about yourself or about others. So there's also this place that you can say, or this moment around this conversation, that you can always say, thank you so much for inviting me, but I will not be attending. And you don't really have to say, because that person is going to be there. In my case, I did have to talk to someone and say, hey, can you please let me know who is going to be at this gathering? And that person ended up saying, come if you want. Literally, like, we couldn't even have this healthy conversation that I desire. So then I asked the other person, hey, who did you invite, who is coming? Because I just wanted to know if that person, my relative, was going to be there, and I don't want to be around that person and their family. And that person ignored me. So I'm like, okay, like, this is not working the way that I wanted. I just wanted to have the conversation. So I ended up saying, hey, this is what's going on. I don't feel comfortable coming to your place when that person is there, because I don't like that person. And there's a backstory as to why I don't like that person. So then my relative is like, why don't you like that person? And I just didn't have to answer that question. For me, it's enough that I'm telling you I don't like that person. I don't need to give you the details, because I don't need to be gaslighted and convinced. And at the end of the day, that person said, you know what, just come if you want. Like, I didn't even get an answer whether that person was going or not. And the thing that happened is that in a previous gathering, I had already communicated that I didn't like this relative. And when I was invited, I went thinking that it was only me who was coming. And I ended up pulling up, and that person, the relative's car, is there, and I knew that person was there, and I was upset. I was so triggered. I was so mad. I'm like, I asked who else was coming and you didn't say anything. So I thought it was just me. And I'm inside the car. I just want to leave, and I think I should have left and never went in. I ended up going in because I felt obligation. I felt obligated, and this was like 2 years ago too. And I ended up going there. I was so triggered. First of all, I went in kind of like sweatpants and like a hoodie, no makeup, because I thought it was just going to be me. And I was not feeling really good that day. I was having really bad mental health struggles that day. And that week, it was just like a bad week for me. And so I forced myself to go in there, and I said, okay, just go there, just try to be nice, just get it over with. And that's it, because I just didn't want the person to be mad. So I ended up getting so triggered. I don't want to go too much into details as to what happened, that I ended up not being able to stay there longer, that I ended up just leaving without saying goodbye to anyone. And that was the worst thing that I could have happened, that I could have done to those people, because they pulled a silent treatment and they stopped talking to me for like over 2 months. And then I ended up having to apologize because they were so mad. And they didn't even apologize to me because I had asked if that person was going to be there. And it was just like this whole chaos. So I apologized, because I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't have left like that. I should have texted you. I should have forced myself to say goodbye. But it got to the moment that I couldn't do that. So I ended up choosing what was best for my mental health and my well being. And I had a lot of anxiety, that I felt the best choice for me and to choose myself was to just leave. I gave a hug to the kids, and I just walked away. And I knew something bad was going to happen when I didn't hear from them for a few days. I was like, okay, the silent treatment. I knew that was going to happen. And I just kind of had to sit with the discomfort of someone being mad at me, and I was okay with it. Like, it's okay. Like, you are going to survive. It's just the pain of someone not liking you, someone being mad at you, especially if you have grown up in an environment that's very chaotic, where you are blamed for everything, where you are made to feel that you do everything wrong and nobody likes you, you don't fit in. So there's this also like rejection sensitivity that happens to, that you are rejected because of how you are. And because if you're setting boundaries and somebody doesn't receive them well, there's this sense of rejection and abandonment that could feel like it's happening within us with those strong emotions. But you can always communicate. If you know there's relatives that are going to be at the gatherings or the holidays or the parties that you don't want to be around, you can literally just choose to not go and say, thank you so much for the invitation, I really appreciate it, but I already have other commitments, or I make other plans, or I'm choosing to do something differently on this holiday. um, or you can literally just say something along those lines. But I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday, and I cannot wait to see you next time. And end it on a happy tone too, if you don't want to have that tension between you and that other person. But at the same time, if you are more bold and apologetic, just be like, thank you so much for the invite, but I will not be attending, period. It just also depends on the energy exchange that you desire for that communication and that conversation. And also, there's this thing also that I'm going through right now, where I am so mad, and there's a lot of rage that I feel, that women are the ones that are always doing the planning and the cooking and organizing everything. And if it was not because of the woman, maybe holidays and parties wouldn't even happen. Yeah, there's a lot of men who are the cooks and do a lot too. But if you are more used to the women, especially in Latina culture, Hispanic cultures, the women are the ones doing the whole cooking, especially if you're going to make the tamales and if you're going to make all this extensive, elaborate dishes. The women are the ones doing everything, the planning, organizing, going grocery shopping. And it's just so draining. And I'm at the point that I'm like, I don't really want to have holidays, just because I am so tired of women being the ones that plan. So I had to have this conversation with a family member, that person was asking me what my plans were for Thanksgiving. And I said, oh, I'm like, I am going through this phase right now that I feel so angry that women are the ones doing everything and not the men. And I don't want to do anything. Like, I just want to spend this holiday on my own. Like, I want to do my own thing. But we ended up like kind of organizing something, because there's also this aspect that there's kids involved, my nieces and nephews. So we ended up just like organizing something that's going to happen. But I had to set some boundaries. Like, hey, can you please let me communicate with me what time you'll be preparing the dinner because I don't eat too late and I want to come home early because I do get up the next day. I have things to do. So there's a lot of communication that needs to happen. For example, if they're cooking something that you cannot eat because of dietary restrictions, food sensitivities, or something, which is something that I have and I struggle with, that I cannot eat a lot of the foods that in a lot of these gatherings give. So I always, either they already know, my family already knows that I would bring my food. If I'm not able to eat the food that they cook, I'm gonna bring my own food, and they already know that they shouldn't be offended. And that could happen a lot with Hispanic cultures, but I know a lot of my audience here is mixed, and it just depends on the culture. That for me, for us, for Hispanics, it's like an insult if they invite you somewhere and you don't eat their food. It's like a serious insult. Like, you have no idea. For the grandmas and the women that cook the food, it feels like you just insulted them. And for me, I needed to have the conversation with my family, and there was a point that my family stopped inviting me to their house, my parents, because I was not able to eat the food that they cooked, and they just stopped inviting me. And I said, hey, I'm like, you can still invite me. Just because I'm not able to eat the food doesn't mean that I don't want to come and spend time with you. And I know the food, for a lot of people and cultures, it's like a connection. It's like a connection thing. It builds connection with your family, and like you gather in the kitchen, and the kitchen is a place of connection, gathering, love, nurturing. And food just brings people together. It's like a binder. It feels like it's a binder in families. But it's okay. So you can always ask, hey, can you please let me know what dishes are going to be served? Because maybe I can bring something to share with everyone, since I have this sensitivity. I hope that's okay with you. But I'm so happy to come and spend time with you. More than anything, that's the most important thing for me. You can always say that. Or, for example, if the person needs help preparing something and you want to help that person, you can always say, hey, let me know if you need help preparing the food, or let me know if you need me to bring something. There's also this thing that, like I said, there's various ways that you can communicate when somebody's asking those tough questions. You can always say, like I said, I don't feel comfortable talking about that. I don't want to talk about that issue right now. Let's just change the subject. Let's just talk about something else, or what is going on with you in your life. And I have this thing that I cannot stand small talk. Like, my soul dies with small talk. Like, just, how's your weekend? What did you do? How are you? Like, oh my gosh, like, I know it's so basic and so needed when you're interacting with someone again after not seeing them for a while. But just the small talk just kills my soul. I want to be asked deep questions, but at the same time, not everybody deserves your depth and your substance and to know everything that's going on with you in your life. So this is when you have to have a lot of discernment. So now, if there's has been a holiday that's coming up that previously has been something very stressful, a source of a lot of tension, there could be fights that happen or arguments that happens around the table, especially religious, political issues, or what's going on right now in the world with Israel and Palestine. There could be one of those things that it was very stressful, that you don't want to experience that again. So you can always say, hey, the last time it was very stressful. I don't really want to talk about religion or politics, especially if there is a difference in political opinions and stances, or there's a difference in what's going on with Israel and Palestine. I'm pro Palestine, obviously, but a lot of people are not going to side with you. So if you know those topics or hot button issues are going to be there, you can always say, I don't want to talk about those issues right now, or I don't want to talk about politics. I don't feel comfortable talking about politics because you and I have a difference in opinion, and let's just change the subject and talk about something that we can see eye to eye or have more in common with. Because a lot of times holidays are not the place to be having those hot heated conversations, especially where there's a difference in opinion and stances. And You can also, for example, if last year, like I said, it was very stressful, you can always choose to have a conversation. And this is what I ended up having the conversation around, about this relative that I don't like, that I don't want to be around. I said, hey, remember what happened last time? I don't want the same thing to happen. So can we talk about how things can be different? If I'm asking you if that person is going to be there, as much as I want to be there, I'm going to choose not to go on that day, but I can always come over the day before or the day after if that is okay with you. You can always say that, and you can always work with this person. And if you feel tension, and if you feel this person is not receiving your boundaries well, you can always say, I just want to have a great time. I want to have a great relationship with you. That's very important to me. But I feel like this topic or this thing that happened last year was a source, or this thing of this relative is a source of tension. I just want to talk to you about how we can do this differently, how we can navigate differently. Or, hey, I was wondering if I can talk to you about the holiday coming up. I'm feeling some anxiety about some things. Is it okay if we can have a conversation? And literally, the best conversations that you can have to avoid misunderstandings is through the telephone, because I'm not a phone person. I prefer texting. Text me all day. Don't call me if it can be texted. But when it comes to things like this, boundaries, it is best to talk to the person, because even your tone of energy and the way you say things can be so misinterpreted through texting, and people can assume you're saying it in a mean way or in a rude way when you literally are not. But maybe these people are not used to someone communicating boundaries to them, that they see them as aggressive or as something. Because I was communicating with a relative the other day, and I had already sent the information, and that person's like, can you send me this? And I'm like, I already sent that to you above. And then I was about to send it again. He's like, calm down. And I was like, hey, I'm like, just because I said it that way, it does not mean that I said it in a rude tone. I was just stating that I had already messaged that information, just so you know that I was mindful of it. And I was literally typing the information that the person asked again. But when the person said calm down, I immediately noticed in my body that I feel so triggered. Women, we do not like to be told to relax and to calm down. I don't think anyone likes it, but I know I'm a woman. I know a lot of women don't like that. So I noticed that trigger within my body right away, that I started to feel very tense and like upset and triggered. And I was like, okay, we're not going to go there. I'm just going to tell him that that was not my intention. But when he said that, I was like, okay, this person is mad. This person is mad at me. Immediately, I went there because I'm so used to that being the pattern. And I just said, hey, just because I said that doesn't mean that I said it in a rude way or I was mad. He's like, it sounded like it. I'm like, it might have sounded like it through text, but it's not. So then I just decided to send that voice text, because it was so much easier and my point could get across and that person can feel my energy, that I was literally not upset. I was upset because he said calm, like relax or calm down. I can't remember exactly what that person said. But other than that, I was fine. After that was resolved, the communication was fine, and we were able to have a good day after that. Let's just say it that way. Also, like, there's times that you want to do your own thing around the holidays. So maybe now you want to have your own traditions, and this is something that it's okay to have. You don't have to have holidays with your family, if especially if you have, like, if you are dating someone new and you are now in a committed relationship and you're going to that person's house too. So now there's other traditions that are coming into play. Or maybe you and that person you are dating, or maybe you're just single like me. I'm single. I just wanted to do my own thing. And I've had holidays before where on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day that I just want to do my own thing. I just want to order pizza. I just want to sitting at home, be cozy, put a blanket, watch a movie, eat my pizza, and just spend time with myself. I have chosen to do that before in previous holidays because I also like to go home early. I mean, go to bed early. I like waking up early to go to the gym. I like showing up for myself the next day, and usually I have a to-do list, I have plans, I have things that I want to do the next days. So I don't want to be sleep deprived. I don't want to be out drinking, or I don't really drink. And the last time I drank, it was like months ago. And I like getting good quality sleep. And right now, my routine and my habits need me to go to bed really early so I can wake up extremely early to go to the gym, because I do have a job that I start very early. So my routine is very different in this phase of my life. And if I don't go to bed early, then my schedule is going to be off. My sleep pattern is going to be disrupted, and my routine and my habits, and I don't like that. And right now, I am doing what's best for me. I am my own priority. You are your own priority. So you need to do what's best for you. You need to listen to yourself. You need to reflect on your own values, your own priorities, your personal boundaries. What boundaries do you need to set around your family, especially topics? What things do you want to talk about? What things you don't want to talk about? What things are okay with you? What things are not okay with you? How are you going to communicate those boundaries? There's like things that you can say, obviously, and what is important to you. And if you don't want to be around family members, you don't have to be around family members. It's okay for you to prioritize your well being and your mental health and your mental space, because maybe going there is going to derail you. Maybe it's going to bring you back to how you were feeling. Maybe you were feeling amazing and great, and you go to that gathering, and then you end up feeling in a funk because you were ask some questions that you didn't want to be asked. Maybe you saw someone said something, and now you are feeling a certain way and your energy is shifted. There's a lot of things that can come into play. So you need to do what's best for you. You need to choose yourself. You need to prioritize yourself. Just because someone is related by blood doesn't mean that you have to be around them. It doesn't mean that you have to see them. It doesn't mean that you have to go to a holiday, especially if that person is there. Does it suck for some people because they want to be around other family members? Yes. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. You have to choose yourself and prioritize yourself. I cannot stress that enough. And you have to know that it's okay to communicate how you feel. It's okay to set boundaries around things that are important to you, or things that you will no longer tolerate, or things that need to be addressed finally because they have to be put under the rug or bypassed, or nobody has ever said anything to this person. Maybe you're the person that was sent to this life and this family system that you have, so you can be the one setting the boundaries and teaching others. And maybe like you choose not to go to the holiday because somebody's gonna be there, or you just don't want to go there. You want to do your own thing now. Maybe you want to set your own traditions. And this is something that I know my sister has, that her mother-in-law, they celebrate Christmas the week before, just so all the family can be there, because now everybody has their own family and they're doing their own thing. So a lot of times that shifts. Why does it have to be on the day of the holiday? You can literally say, we'd like to get together the week before, the week after the holiday at my house. We want to host. How does that make you feel? Or what do you think about that? You can always say that. But when you pitch the idea that it's okay to see those people in days that are not holiday related and still celebrate the holiday, it's okay. I think like everybody is like, no, we have to do it the day of the holiday. No, you don't. You can literally do your own traditions. It doesn't matter what day it is. You can do it 2 weeks in advance. Friendsgiving. Nobody does Friendsgiving the day of Thanksgiving. They do it a week before, a month before. You have to choose what is best for you, depending on your lifestyle, of course. And like I said, if you have, because this is something about the the food that they have, you can always set boundaries around that. And obviously, if you're not able to eat the food or you don't like the food that they're gonna cook, you can either not go, or you can say, I'm so excited, but I will be bringing my own dish or my own dishes to share. Maybe you're vegan, maybe you have a food sensitivity, like I said. So I already talked about this earlier, but I feel like it's so important because I do have food sensitivities. And like I said, I don't really eat a lot of the food that they eat, and especially his like Mexican food, I don't really eat it. It's very irritating to my gut. I cannot eat spicy food anymore because it was really affecting my gut issues. So now I just bring my own food, or because I already know. Because one person said, you know what, I'm not going to be cooking anything special for you if you come over. Like that person literally said that to me. So I learned. I was like, okay, then I'm going to bring my own food. Please don't get offended. And then that's the way that relationship it's been. And they are so used to me bringing my own food that they don't really get offended, because for me, and this is what I told them, the most important thing is to spend time with you guys. It's not about the food, it's about seeing you guys, it's about seeing the kids, it's about being around you. That's the most important thing for me. It has nothing to do with the food, but like I said, for a lot of people, food is, it connects you with other people. A lot of people show love through food. I show love through food. If I like someone, I will bake them a dish. I love baking, even though I'm not able to eat a lot of the things that I bake, but I love baking. But in a nutshell, I really hope this episode helped you decide how to set the boundaries, that it's okay to set those boundaries. I gave you a few tips on, not tips, but like a few liners that you can say to those people, or how you can communicate those boundaries. But at the end of the day, you have to reflect on what it is your preference, and what you desire. And boundaries are preferences you set for how you want others to interact with you and to have a relationship with you. And they're limits that you also put for yourself, so others can know how to interact with you, what you allow and you won't allow. You also need to have that. And a lot of times, if family members are not used to that, they're gonna be taken back. They're gonna be probably defensive. They're not gonna be okay with it. But it takes time, because if you have gone your entire life without setting boundaries, that it's going to take time for your family to receive those boundaries and be okay with it. So you also have to be patient around that. But I really hope that you do what's best for you. Boundaries are personal, and they preserve your mental well being, your inner peace, your sanity, your mental health. And that's what's the most important to you. And it's not worth it to feel all anxious, to have panic attacks because you're going to go to a relative's house that you really don't want to be around. Or maybe you're going to go to your parents' house and you're going to have relatives, an aunt and an uncle that is going to come in that you don't really like or you don't want to see. Or there's always this discussions that you don't really want to be a part of. Do what is best for you, or you can choose to go for a little bit and leave. You can always do that, because it is ultimately what is going to feel good for you. And if you're not ready to set boundaries, make sure to keep this podcast on the back end for any holiday when you feel you are ready, or if you need help with setting boundaries or healing anything around your family, send me a message. We can talk about it. And I do have my coaching available if you are ready for coaching too, or if you want to see what packages I have, you can always DM me. But the importance of setting healthy boundaries is for a more joyful and harmonious relationship that you can have with others. But the most important one is the one that you have with yourself. So do what is best for you. And I hope this helped, and let me know if you need any help. And I cannot wait for the next episode. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation for Feminine Truth Podcast. This podcast is for you, for me, for us, for the Feminine Collective. Thank you so much for spending your time and energy with us. Share on Instagram and Facebook stories what resonated with you. And if you're listening to this, and for anyone to get a hold of this podcast at Feminine Truth Podcast, and if you feel called to, leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know how this has felt for you listening to the podcast. And the episodes are going to be every Tuesday, so I cannot wait to see you next time. Sending so much love.